they are learning and what is actually happening in the market. Okay, so those kind of programs are basically a kind of change that is being brought into the academia towards entrepreneurship. Okay, these are some of the root the changes which are happening at the root, which need to take shape and bring more of fruits of the change. Okay, so we've got different kinds of promotions which is happening through this institutional innovation council. There are some prototype funding assistances that is happening, and there are certain programs and certain mentoring sessions that is happening. And actually, I'm not very sure, probably you have got an opportunity to listen to certain sessions. There are different kinds of innovation ambassador trainings. There are basic training, there are advanced level training, and there are upskilling and reskilling kind of trainings and all, which you can undergo and get yourself certified as an innovation ambassador. Okay, and yeah, then there are different kinds of ecosystem enabling, or rather assistances that we normally practice at the institute and IT side, which probably you also could in each of your institutes, which you can take forward to. Like one is, I'm not sure if you have heard of National Innovation and Startup Policy, which is the abbreviation is NISP, which is a policy brought out by the central government in the year 2019, which is actually giving guidelines for the faculty and students to form their own startup. Okay. Now, as per the central government rules, the faculty and students are allowed to form startups. Okay, even though they are employed, they are allowed to form startups. I'm talking about the faculty and staff. But only thing is, you will have to give a certain percentage of ownership, let's give a certain percentage of equity of the startups to the institute. Okay, that is, the institute also will be a partner, or rather a director in the company that every faculty is forming. Okay, there are many central government institutions which have already adopted this rule. Probably we may have to take a good steps towards that also. Of policy, which when you think that each of you put on your own company, when you say you have enough of researches that is happening in your lab, if you have some good potential, some good researchers with some good commercial potential, probably what you can do is, based on that product, you can form your own company along with your students, or on your own, or you can partner with anybody else outside as well. Okay, but the thing is, there are certain regulations that is given by the government. Maybe you can refer to, you can Google out and get this NISP, National Innovation Startup Policy, from from the ministry side. Just go through that. Only thing is, 9 point it says that 9.5 percentage of the equity that the company formed by a faculty is to be given to the institute. Okay, but of course the institute will have to form a separate entity. Of course, being an academic institute, you will be exempted from income tax. Okay, and whenever you are receiving some grants, especially. Okay, but for an institution, academic institution which is exempted under income tax, cannot take equity. Okay, but if you are under a trust, your trust can take the equity. Okay, when it is a government institute, yes, we will have to form a separate entity. Okay, a special purpose vehicle, which will take the equity on behalf of the institute. Okay, now the maximum percentage of equity that an institution can take is 9.5 percentage, which will be again, or maximum 20 percentage of the faculty's share or staff's share. Okay, that's one thing. That is when actually the faculty itself is going to start the faculty himself is going to start the company. Okay, but for student companies, it doesn't say that. I mean, the policy doesn't say that you have to take the equity compulsorily, but it is again up to the institute. This is the policy is generally a guideline. Again, you can form. You can make it. The regulations could be formed according to your circumstances. It says also that the mentoring support, the faculty can give the mentoring support. Mostly whenever we are taking an incubating company, what we do is we attach one faculty to to that incubating company, so that there are it's basically for two things. One, we will always have a grip on that startup, and the second one is whenever the faculty definitely will be able to contribute to the technical contribute technically to that startup's working. Okay, that's another thing. And what we form in this policy, as per our national innovation startup policy for the institute, what we have thought is basically when you are giving, rather than mentoring, or rather when you, of course, when you mentor for a longer term, when you spend a lot of time and energy on that startup, definitely you also need to get something in return, right? So what we thought is we have the consultancy rule, where probably you or your institute also would be having consultancy rule, where certain percentage of the consultancy revenue that is coming to the institute is given to you, and a part is given to the institute, right? Similar way, when you're mentoring a startup or providing consulting to a startup, probably the startup will not be able to pay you immediately, because they may not have started even the revenue attempt. So what happens is you can take 1% of the equity of the startup, okay, for giving the mentoring assistance to the startup, okay, for a longer term. And what happens is when the company wants to take it back, normally the startups, what happens is they will not like any of these kind of institutions to hold their equity if they are growing, okay, because when they normally go for the next level of investment, definitely any of the startups would like to take back the equity and have a clean cap structure, cap table, so that only the necessary people, or rather people who are really contributing to the startup, are only there. So they will definitely like to, or rather when the investor comes for an investor comes to invest in a startup, they would always check out all the unnecessary people out. So similarly, the institutions also, what we expect is we also will be able to redeem our equity when an investor comes. So that is the exit plan normally for the institute. That is, it may happen in 3 years, it may happen in 5 years, or if the startup and the investor is willing, your institute can hold the equity forever, okay, or rather whenever you feel that it could be redeemed, and you can have a decent exit with funding, okay. Like if you have a 3% of equity in a 30 crore worth company, when you are exiting, you need to get the equivalent money of the 3% of the 30 crores, right? So it depends on the valuation and how much the institute can, when the institute wants to get out of that. So that is about the ownership of the faculty startups and the mentoring support. Definitely the student startup also can go in the same way, but mostly the student startup, normally what we do is they are around students and let them do it, okay. And there are, like many institutions who are giving the student innovation support also through funding, okay. We have student innovation projects which are there, up to around 1.5 lakhs rupees we can give up to a student, which might mostly turn into a patent, okay. So this patent normally goes to another thing, that is a technology transfer, okay. Patent or copyright, whenever that happens, it is an intellectual property right, and when it is done as a part of the academic work or as a part of the academic research, the property, or that is the intellectual property, is basically for the institute, in the name of the institute. So now, if the if you want to give that technology out, that is a technology transfer. You have a technology, your institute has a technology which is to be with for which a taker, a buyer is there, okay. Because there are many technologies, we have many institutions, many research organizations selling the technologies, right? So the selling, a smooth transfer, okay, is called the technology transfer. It can happen in many ways. It could be complete licensing out, and getting, it could be licensed out with exclusive license, non-exclusive license. Exclusive license is mainly for one single company you're giving, and non-exclusive to multiple companies. Of course, obviously, when the exclusive license, it will be priced more, and even the pricing could be an upfront payment with lump sum payment, or it could be in two ways, that is a part of it as a upfront payment, and the other one as a part of a certain percentage of revenue, what is happening every year, what the company is getting every year, okay. It could be like that, or it could be a royalty, That is a certain percentage of the product sale here that you're giving to the. So when it is becoming a royalty and a percentage of revenue and all, definitely when the buyer is not very sure about how much money they can make through the technology, we can opt for those kind of things. But when it is sure that yes, the technology can bring in a lot of fun, it is always better that you go for the upfront transfer, right? And again, you have the consulting activities that is happening also, which you may be able to do with the startup. Okay, your startup, you can be a consultant to that startup. Like we have a lot of people who, lot of faculty who are doing the consulting work to the startup, and it can even turn up like you become one of the director after identifying that there is a lot of potential in that startup. Okay, so these are some of the ways in which probably an academic institution can support the startup ecosystem and the industry. Okay, so the startup ecosystem, the startup can form from the, it could be a spin-off of the academic researches that is happening, or it could be an outside startup which is coming to work along with the academics institution, wherein, or rather the researchers, with the researchers that they want to commercialize, or even there is some specific personalities, or rather expertise that is there in the academic institute, which the startup thinks that will be of great use to them. Okay, so there are different ways of, some of these are some of the points which I thought of mentioning in relation to the academia and academic and startup relationship. Now, when you go for the incubation activities, okay, suppose you have a startup formed in your institution, and the startup you are incubating. Okay, see, this incubation is not a big word or not a big thing that is happening. It is, even if you have two or three small startup being formed by your students. Okay, and it need not be a rocket science kind of startup also. Like we have, even it could be a smaller one, normal service based startups also, where you can give a lot of assistance, or rather lot of helping hand to these startups, mainly in the form of probably infrastructure, mentoring, all these things. In the startup stage, they normally take a get assume a lot of value to a startup. Like when they are students, they cannot go out, when especially when they are ongoing students, they cannot go out, so sit somewhere else and do the work of their startup, right? So probably we will have to provide the infrastructure in our college itself, right, in the campus itself. So basic infrastructure, it could be in the form of their office spaces, it could be the meeting room, it could be conference room, it could be library, it could be anything. Okay, so anything related to infrastructure. Then of course mentoring, definitely we will need to have, apart from the technical side mentoring which you may be able to give, you need to have a panel of mentors from outside, from industry, who will be able to help you out in identifying or rather solving the problems of the startups, right? And yes, obviously the technical assistance which you will be well qualified or well good in doing it. Then the networking, of course, the market entry to the market definitely happens through the networking that happens, with the different forces of market, right? So providing a platform for networking, it could be through your industry organizations where you are members, or if you are not, you need to push the startups into these kind of industry organizations and meetings and all. The networking opportunities that you have. Okay, then business development assistance, probably you may have to think of some of the business opportunities, or rather hunt for some of the business opportunities for your startups, where you may have to support them. Probably you may have to give the offers or give the project reports on behalf of your startup, and all these things in the initial stages. Okay, then their training of their employees. Okay, and even financial assistance, which is most important. Okay, there are different kinds of financial assistance which we will look into later. And just kind of some kind of a secretarial assistance and office support and everything. Technology transfer, we just told. Okay, then legal and statutory assistance, which is another thing which is very important in the initial stages itself, because when the partnership is formed, when the a company registration is done, and when you're taking and even in the initial stages when you're taking the employees, the contract that is being done, and again when you're going for the initial tie-ups, when they are taking investments, that is again another most important thing. Like if you have a legal advisor and chartered accountant and all in your company secretary and all in your team, what happens is they through them the startups form should be able to get that. Like when an investment is required in any of your startup companies. Maybe if they are pitching to any of the angel investors or individual HNIs, okay, for who are willing to put their money into, there are a lot of things which we need to consider, okay, so that the startup will not land into difficulty in future. How much percentage to be given, what are the terms in the agreement that is to be done, how they can protect their interest in future, okay, so all these things. But most importantly, the pre-incubation support, or rather the formation, or rather the identifying the opportunity, okay, for forming a startup is the most important thing. That is where you need to be a lot of lot skeptical, or rather you need to do the role of a devil's advocate. Okay, the thing is, when one student startup or when student team comes to you telling that they have found out a wonderful opportunity, okay, nobody else have found it in the world, you need to have a lot of questions to ask to them. Okay, why is it so? Who are the customers? How they will serve the customers, or rather, how what is their USP? That is their unique selling proposition. Why they differentiate from how they differentiate from others? Why should the customer leave everything apart and come to them? Okay, so all these questions plus a thorough market study. Okay, so we everything normally the students come with a lot of assumptions. Okay, whenever they have some idea, definitely we all love our ideas, right? We all think that our ideas are the best, but definitely we need to guide them, or we need to prove them that probably it is not so. Okay, probably it's not so, that's all. Okay, there could be instances that it is so, but in most of the cases it may not be so, right? So they don't believe what they say. Don't believe what of course, as I said earlier, many times what we thought could be totally proven wrong. That also is there. But again, it is in two ways actually. The questions that we ask will help them to think more. Okay? When they think more, they will have a proper plan about how to go about with the business. Okay, this will help them in future, like when they have some difficulty, how they need to go, how they need to approach the customer, what kind of questions they need to ask, what kind of prices and what kind of product attributes or service attributes they need to fix up, how they, on the company side, what kind of team that they have to form, what is good about one particular team and what is good about having a bigger team, or having a very one single arm, single person and all. So all these things, you are giving food for thought to them. Okay, so that's on one side. And again, you know when you are asking questions, when it is not so, when the students are not so particular, not so passionate about forming the startups, they will leave and go. Okay, if the students are really passionate only, we need to support them, or rather we should support them. Okay, because we have seen so many people, when they come to us ask, when they get a lot of questions to them, they feel that okay, this, I don't think we will be able to do it, and they will just go. Okay, because for an entrepreneur, the perseverance is the most important thing. Okay, he need to stick to what he believes. Okay, he need to stick to, or rather he need to prove what he believes is correct, right? So that's the first challenge that any student entrepreneur also need to take. Okay, so any questions so far, or any comments? I hope I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am. Very clear.
Okay, all right, okay. So I was talking about some of the financial assistances. Like there are different kinds of financial assistances. One as grant, that is where the money is given to the innovator, money is given to the company, which you don't take back. Okay, I'm talking about these financial assistances which are provided mostly through the incubation centers, or which are mostly provided, or rather uh, provided to the startups by the government, and which are existing in the market. Okay, so one is the grant, which where you don't have to give it back to the agency which is paying you. Okay, there could be different agencies, like it could be some of the government agencies, like we had KSIDC and KFC, giving grants earlier. years, we had around 11 or 12 of our startups receiving money from Kerala Financial Corporation. Those were loans actually, where you have to pay it back with an interest. You will have a certain period, around 5 to 6 years, to repay the loan, which will be, of course, there will be a moratorium period of say 1 year or so, after which only the interest calculation will be done. That is until the first year, 1 year is over, you don't have to start paying back. But after 1 year, you have to start paying back, and then with interest you got to pay. But normally, with the government agencies, the interest rate will be very minimal, maybe around 4 to 5 percentage, okay, or 6% at the max. There are many incubation centers which are giving loan to their incubated startups. We also do. Most of the incubation centers do. It is normally, as I said, it's a kind of without any collateral security, you can give the loan, because the incubation centers get this money as a grant from different funding agencies. Okay, so these loans are given when the certain time is given for them to repay it back. Of course, considering the kind of services and kind of revenue model that the companies are having. The grant is another thing. There are different kinds of grant, which you can see that there is Niti Prayas grant, which is normally for the prototype assistance, which is given. And that is, if you have a wonderful idea, if you have student is having a wonderful idea, you can get up to 10 lakhs. There are around 40 plus Niti Prayas centers around. I mean, in India, in the country, through which any of these innovators could submit their proposal and get up to 10 lakhs as grant, okay, which you don't have to give back. Of course, when it is grant, the competition is more, okay, and as you don't have to, because it's your money and you don't have to pay it back. Definitely, these are given normally in installments. I mean, tranches, like 3 or 4 tranches, and which after each utilization of each tranche, you got to uh, prove that you have done enough work, or you have done enough progress. Okay, so then only the next tranche will be given. So there are other types of grants also, like another one is entrepreneur in residence grant, which is a kind of a fellowship which is given to an entrepreneur, an entrepreneur who is directly coming from the academia, that is a student researcher, a graduate or a postgraduate who comes to entrepreneurship, try out entrepreneurship after his or her studies. Okay, will be given 30,000 per month for for supporting themselves. And sorry, it is not 3 lakh. Okay, it is up to 30,000. Okay, there are different schemes. It is not only this is about the DST scheme, and there is a similar scheme under the Meiti Tide scheme also, which is happening in many tide centers. Okay, Meiti Tide centers, there are in Kerala, there are maker villages there, and in nearby states, Coimbatore, PSG is there. So there are different kinds of which you could be able to search out in Google. This loan also, there is the scheme under Tide is there, under DST also is there, Startup India Seed Fund scheme is there. Okay, and now with the Ministry of MSME also, you have got a lot of assistances and schemes that are there. There are different kinds of hackathon that is happening. Okay, it every time, different in every year, there are different kinds of hackathons being floated by the Ministry of MSME, which will be sometimes, we had a hackathon exclusively for women, and there are other hackathons also which is happening. This they are funding again as a grant. There are certain conditions. Okay, in each of the funding schemes, especially when it is a grant, there are certain conditions which you need to abide to for getting the money. So these are all run through some kind of an incubation centers, which you may be able to find out when you're contacting the incubation center. And the in ministry's innovation scheme, Ministry of MSNE has got other schemes also, which you have got as the innovate scheme, where up to different kinds of funding support you can get. Up to 40 lakhs you can get through design scheme. So these are some of the schemes from the Ministry of MSME, and the Ministry of MSME has got their for patenting scheme also, and the patent, it is given as a reimbursement mostly. Okay, now up to just to give a short description about our incubation center, the statistics wise, we had around 115 companies, and number of graduated companies after 3 years of incubation period, we have got almost 98 people, companies graduated, around 17 companies right now in place. That there is, it is a sector agnostic incubator, that is any engineering technology companies we are supporting, and there are around of course failures also, around 28 companies have failed, some products, some success stories, and associated departments and all. Just trying to, if basically we are going with the business plan submitted by each of the entrepreneur, and they've got to come present it before a committee. And what we normally look for is, these things: good team leadership, and their complementary skills, and how much of market research that they've gone for. Okay, so that's it from me. I think, yeah, it's almost time. Another 5 minutes I would like to give you for any questions. Madam, anybody have got any questions? I hope I'm audible. Hello, anybody there?
Yes, yes. You are audible, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Any doubts or questions to be asked? Yeah, please. Please, ma'am. Dr. Smita Josh, any question from you? Okay, fine. So we have our IEDC summit this time. IEDC summit happening at NIT on 19th of October. So I will have planned for a meeting at 8 o'clock. So that's why I'll have to leave sharp at 8 o'clock itself to join the other meeting. So any questions? Please ask. Dr. Smita, yes. Okay, you can chat. You can put it in the chat. So I think all your colleges will be having IEDCs in your colleges, and yeah, we hope to meet on 19th at NIT campus for the IEDC summit. Okay, right. So shall I stop here? If there are no more questions. Okay, so how can I start a startup in a college? If you have, there are a lot. For us, if I say, we have around 6 startups in our college. Okay, in our institute, it all depends on whether your terms of appointment, uh, agree allows you to form the startup or not. When you are forming, or when you are adopting the national innovation startup policy in your institute or in your university, you are allowed to form the startup. Okay, you can form, sorry, you can form it as a normal private limited company or LLP itself. Okay, with in which the institute also will be a part as per the policy. Okay, if your institute adopt the policy, I'm not sure from which institute you are. Okay, but as per the policy document of the central government, yes, you can form a startup. Okay, anything more? So if there are no more questions, thank you very much for. No, it is not as a society or charitable company. It has to be a private limited company normally. Okay, Section 8 non-profit companies, and you cannot take it for a business. Okay, it is only for these incubation. Hello, am I audible?
Yeah,
Hello.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, okay. So somebody was asking why is it as a charitable society, but it is not as a charitable society. When you are forming a startup, a company, of course, when you are forming probably an incubation center or something like that, you can definitely go for the Section 8 company and charitable society. But when you're forming a startup, especially when you are looking for investment and all, definitely you will have to form as a private limited company itself or LLP. Okay. Any more doubts? Okay. What are the skills you should look for in adding a partner? Whatever skills you don't have. That is a simple answer. Okay. Like if you feel that you are very good in technology, okay, you have a good product idea, you know how to make a product or you know how to give a service. Okay. Technical side, if you are very good, you need to look for a person who can do the marketing, who can talk well, okay, attract the customer, or somebody who has a lot of money, who can bring in the money, but probably he may not be able to give you technically an advantage, or he may not be even able to talk also or even market also, but he has got a lot of money, and when the company needs money, okay, when the company needs fund, probably you will have to go for that. Is how the investors are joining, right? But when you're forming the core team, make sure that you have complementary skills. That is somebody who's good in technical, somebody who's good in finance, and somebody who's good in marketing, right? Or rather selling the product. Okay. So this is the rough idea of how you need to form a team. Clear? Yeah. Women entrepreneurship. Actually, there is nothing specific to women. Why we should have a reservation for women? But if you are capable, definitely yes, you can come to the forefront. That's it. Okay. But yes, there are certain schemes for women entrepreneurs. Okay. There are certain specific forums that are exclusively for women, which you can explore. There are many hackathons happening exclusively for women that also you can take for. There are different schemes, even from the Kerala government industries department. Also, you have got different scheme, which is a bit more beneficial to women. Now, even if we say, when we look for good people, good entrepreneurs, for giving them the grant, there is, if there is a specific woman entrepreneur who is having the rank at par with another person, the women entrepreneur will get a preference. Okay. Of course, it is for promoting more of women entrepreneurship. Okay. But we have got a lot of examples of very good women entrepreneurs. Okay, so if there are no more questions, shall we conclude?
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, what all things to consider if you want to have a startup policy in an institute? What all things we need to include?
Yeah, there are no nothing much actually. What first thing is, if you have want to have a startup policy for whom? Okay, is it for the faculty, students, or anything? Like, if it is for the faculty, yes, the appointment considerations are to be taken care. Okay, now if it is for the students, only thing is you need to have all these whatever I explained in this presentation right now. Take care of that, like what you provide, what you take back, okay, from the startup. Okay, definitely for the incubation or even the startup ecosystem in the institute also, if you have to sustain, you need to have a revenue model. Okay, so just supporting the startups will not be enough. That support need to sustain for long, right? That is, today you have 5 startups, all of them are gone, tomorrow again you got to sustain, right? You got to support some other startups, right? So basically, devise a mechanism, or rather a sustainable structure for your incubation activities itself. Okay, how you're sustaining, like, if probably you could take equity in the incubated startups, which you can redeem later on, which will give you some funds. Okay, or there could be some agencies which can give you support. It could be your management also, or it could be some government projects, it could be some government departments which you could give you which you could which could be give which could give funds to you for sustaining your effort for incubation and startup ecosystem. Okay, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. Is that so?
Yeah.
Or
Ma'am, you
yeah.
mentioned about the NISP policy and all.
Yes, yes, yes.
So if an
So
institute
that
wants
is
to register for that, whether we need to have a exclusive startup policy, what's
no,
that?
no, no. The NISP, National Innovation Startup Policy, is a general guideline for academic institutions to have their own startup policy for their faculty and students. Okay, that is available in the web. You can download it and go through. Okay, there are certain guiding principles which is being given in those things, in that guideline, in that policy, which is actually helping you, like, you are a faculty there in any of the institutions. Only 20% of your timing could be time in the institution, that is working time, could be dedicated for the startup activities, your startup activities. Okay, see, like, a person A, if you want to form a startup, you are an employed faculty employed in any of the institute, your 20% of the working time you can take for your startup activity. Okay, that is, these are some of the principles that is given already in this National Innovation Startup Policy, which could be adopted when you are making the policy in your particular institute. Okay, and the institute will have to take your company that you're forming need to give some equity, portion of equity of your company to the institute, which the institute can redeem, can exit from that equity participation later on after some time, when the startup matures and it is capable of paying back. Okay, and yes, definitely there are when start faculty is forming, yes, there need to be some kind of a evaluating body which will control, and which will give permissions and all for supporting for coming up with the startup and monitoring its activities and all. Okay, there are certain committees, we all work with certain committee guidelines, like, we have for selection of the new incubating companies, we have got the committee. For when they are applying for funds, we have got an evaluation committee. When you are giving them grant, one after one tranche, when they are going for the next tranche, then again the progress is evaluated. So again, when you are taking the equity, you need to have some expert panel which will which will see whether how much of equity is could be taken and all those kind of things. Okay, so everywhere a different a panel need to be there, collective opinion need to be there for considering all these, whether it is a faculty company or whether it is a student company. Okay.
So in this all committees, whether faculty alone will be, I mean, the faculties from the institute alone will be there, or we need to have.
No, 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 no. You need to have external people also, because when in whatever selection and monitoring committees that we have, normally in almost every incubation center, there will be some industry members. Obviously, there will be members from the funding agencies. Okay, whenever you are working under some funding, like we have DST members, we have MEITI members and all in the respective committees. When you are planning for when you are planning for taking a committee and company and all, that is probably the upper level body. But when you are actually evaluating a proposal given by any entrepreneur, it is not only the faculty committee, a committee with entire in completely faculty in that, but you need to have somebody from the practical side also, that is from the industry also. Okay, it could be somebody from the corporate side, but mostly somebody who is well versed with the startup ecosystem is always better.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Okay, so I think I need to leave now for another since I have some other commitments. So thank you all. Thank you very much for having for this patient listening and all the questions.
Yeah. Thank
I
you.
hope it was a bit at least some way it was beneficial.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Hoping
ma'am.
to
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for sharing your invaluable insights, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you all.